Hi everyone! Today I have another card to share from the Parcels and Petals stamp set. Now this stamp set is part of a bundle. It comes with a die collection that makes boxes, and I'm going to show it briefly because I did a video on the box. It makes a box. It has really fun accent dies, tag topper, a few labels, a couple of detail dies that make some fun stitching and eyelet holes. It's got a lacy die, background for that, and another tag. Really fun die collection, and today we're just going to use this little tag die right there, little label die, and it's really fun. There's a video on just the boxes and how to make them. I'll show it to you real quick. Really cute little box. It opens like a fudge box, and there's a video on how to make it a little longer, and check those out. But today I want to show you how to do this kind of watercolor look. The stamps itself have a watercolor-like look to them already, in that they have a lot of little tiny dots in the rubber to kind of give you some darks and lights, some different values, and so it's really interesting just as it is stamped. But I like to take it a little further and really make it look like I watercolored these flowers. Look at that. But I just stamped them and added a little bit of water on top, and I'm going to show you how to get this nice look. I think it's pretty anyway. What do you think? Pretty. I did the same thing on this box, and here we go. So you need a paper that'll handle water, so I recommend shimmer white or watercolor paper. I use shimmer white a lot. I go through a ton. It stands up to watercolor techniques, and it adds a nice shimmer to the project, but I don't know that transfers well on video, but there is a nice shimmer to the project, and it's flat, and watercolor paper sometimes has some texture to it, and so I like the shimmer white cardstock. There's a new watercolor paper coming out in the catalog that starts on June 4th. I haven't tried it yet because we weren't able to pre-order it, but I'm going to put that on my very first order, June 4th, and I'll go ahead and review that watercolor paper as soon as I can. But for now, I would like to use the shimmer white cardstock, and I've cut a piece. Where'd it go? Here they are. And I already forgot what size I cut them. Okay. So the small panel of shimmery white is 2 3/4 by 4. Okay, and then I went up just a tiny bit on the Night of Navy. I wanted a skinny little matting around there, so I only went up 1/8 of an inch on the Night of Navy, so it's 4 1/8, and then that was 2 3/4, so it would be 2 and that requires math, 1/8 larger. Okay, and then on the coral piece here, I've got 4 1/2 by 3 1/2. Okay, so those are your cardstock pieces, and this is an 8 1/2 by 11 sheet of cardstock cut in half the wide way and then scored down the center, and that's our card base. I also cut another piece of shimmery white at 4 by 5 1/4, and that is not it, but it's for the inside. Where did I put it? Let's get started on this card. The first thing I want to stamp is my background, and what I'm using is this large background piece. Really fun. It fits the box. If you saw my little box, it fits the side of the box, but it's also fun to use as a background on your cards, and that is what I'm going to do right now. Now when I do a background, I love working on this grid paper. Stampin' Up sells grid paper to customers. It's not just for demonstrators. You can find it. If you can't find it, let me know, but look under tools, Stampin' Tools, and maybe you'll find it there. I like it because it's nice to line up my stamps. You can kind of see the line and say, okay, I stamped this 5 squares up, and then I know that I'm going to get a nice line, nice straight line. Now I didn't care that in the center it's overlapped because that's going to get covered. If you want that perfect, you can use your Stamparatus to get a nice super clean line. Okay, I'm going to set that aside, and we're going to work on our shimmery white panel here. Now for that we're going to use this floral stamp. All 3 flowers are on the same stamp. Kind of a bummer. I was thinking about cutting them apart, but I rarely ever do that. And you know, sometimes you do want them on the same. You want to use all the same color. I'm going to use my markers to stamp this up. You can see I've already got some ink already on there. I didn't bother cleaning it because I knew I was going to do it again. So I'm using Night of Navy, Calypso Coral, and Coastal Cabana. And if you look at this paper, my inspiration comes straight from my grid paper. Look at that. I love the look of this grid paper. It's so pretty that I copy it all the time. I've made several projects copying this look exactly. I've even painted these exact flowers on a project. I love them. You can see those if you look through my video section. I did a big painted piece and you'll probably see some other things like this. It's just really a beautiful, beautiful grid paper, and it's so sad to muck it up and throw it away. But anyway, let's ink up this stamp. So I'm using my markers, and Stampin' Up! Markers have a small end and a brush end. You're going to use the brush end. You can see my navy is really old. It's one of my first markers I bought, and it still works great. So I have a new one, but I haven't opened it yet because I don't know, I figured I'd open it when this finally dried out, and it hasn't. It's kind of funny. But we're going to use the brush end, and I like to start with my lightest color first, which I feel is kind of this Coastal Cabana. It's kind of a toss-up between that and the Calypso Coral. So I'm using the brush end and kind of going on the side. I'm not using the top, I'm using the side of the brush end and just kind of getting it all inky. And then I'm going to go with the Calypso Coral. And then the navy. Now I wanted my little splatters on the background to all be navy, so I gotta kind of go around and get some of those inked up. Being careful not to get it on the flower in the There we go. Now that's pretty. It's already pretty, but it's going to be even more pretty. So let's ink up another one. Now I accidentally got the tip of my flower there. Do you know what's great for that? Blender pen. It's nice to pick up ink boo-boos. Another good way to use your blender pen is if you get some ink on an edge, you can kind of go in and pick it up. A Q-tip also works. Oh my, look what I just did. There we go. Okay, now I need to put some more on there. Trying to go for random, organized random, because I don't really want my blues together. Does that make sense? Organized random. I think we're gonna go there. Got two blues by each other, but I'm gonna say it's random. I'll let it go. I only did the blue that time because it's gonna stick off the side here. And I think I need some Calypso Coral down in this corner. There we go, and I think a tiny bit of Coastal Cabana up there. Okay, there we go. That's my organized random. All right, so now we're going to take this to another level by adding some water. I'm going to clean this off first. Because this stamp has all those itty bitty little dots of rubber, instead of having a flat smooth rubber surface, it's got the dots to give you that depth of color. It is harder to clean, so you can you want to make sure you clean it really good the next time you use it. I didn't one time, and then I thought, you know, why is it not stamping a nice clean color? It's because I didn't get a good job cleaning. So I'm going to clean that real quick. Okay. All right, so now let's move on to the watercolor. Now for this, I grab my Stampy Scrub that I just used a second ago to clean my stamp. I'm going to use it to clean my brush. And I am using an Aqua Painter from Stampin Up. I love the Aqua Painter. I actually bring this when I do my regular watercolor pictures, paintings, whatever, and I use it constantly. I love this thing. So again, I'm going to start with my lighter colors, and you can decide if that's Calypso Coral or Coastal Cabana. I'm going Coastal Cabana, and I have it, it's wet. It's not dripping wet. I squeezed the barrel to get this tip wet, and then I kind of take my fingers and go like this, just to kind of get a nice tip, and also to see how wet it is. It helps me judge how wet it is. And then I'm going to just take the Aqua Painter and go over the stamp, and I'll show you, I'll bring it close to the camera. You can see a finished one next to a non-finished one. What I'm doing is all those little dots are kind of getting blended together, but light areas are still staying light. It's kind of giving it a different look. So you're kind of blending those little dots together. It's even more apparent on the navy. So then I like to take my stamp pad. All my stamp pads look like this. They have ink inside. And then I'm going to pick up a little bit of ink, and this is still wet, and I'm going to touch it in areas. It looks like, you know, you've painted this and it's paint that's pooled in a certain area. So you're just kind of touching the still wet stamped image. All right, let's move on to another one. See how it's still wet. I'm kind of touching different areas. Okay, and if it starts to dry, squeeze your barrel again. I keep my Stampin' Scrub here so that I can squeeze over it so that water doesn't get all over my work surface. And also, if I'm switching colors, I just kind of go like this and get that color off my brush tip. So I've squeezed it, a little bit more water on my barrel, on my brush tip, and I'm just going to blend this out. Okay, let's do the Calypso Coral. So I'm going to clean this. I'm going to squeeze it to make sure it's got enough water on it. I like to touch the top. I don't know why. I just like to know what's in there. I like to know how wet it is before I touch the paper. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead. Now, as you're working, this is a lot of your stamps, your images are going to have dried a little bit. So the first ones you do will bleed a little faster. The colors will run together faster. The ones that you did, as you get further and further out, they're not going to bleed as much. So just don't work too slow. I'm kind of talking as I'm making this card, so I'm working slowly. And it's going to not blend as well, but it's still going to be beautiful. And I'm going to grab my ink pad now with the Calypso Coral, and I'm going to do the same thing I did here. I'm going to pick up some ink and touch the still wet flowers. I don't know if this one's still wet. It is a little bit. If you want to get it wet again, you can. One more. Okay, Calypso Coral is done. Moving on to the navy. The navy shows up the most. Again, I've been talking, so I haven't been going very fast, and you may not get that blending as much, but it might, because navy is a pretty rich color. Yeah, you're still going to get it. All right, so I'm going to smooth out these petals. Alright, I'm going to bring it close so you can see the one that is still dotted next to the ones that are blended out. See the difference? Now, navy's pretty light, pretty dark, so maybe you want a light area. You can kind of get your brush wet and lift some color away and have a light area in the center. Okay, now you can kind of decide, do you need more drops of color? Is it good? I'm going to rinse my brush a little bit. I think I want to add a little bit of Calypso Coral. So this brush is going to be pretty wet. I'm going to grab some more Calypso Coral. I want it to really look watercolored, so I'm going to add these little balloons of color here. Okay, now you want to let this dry. You can hit it with your heat tool if you like. What I am going to do is layer the rest of my card while it dries. I like leaving it. It's going to have weird little edges on the water part as they dry, and it's kind of nice. Okay, I forgot the leaves on my card front. See? So I'm going to go ahead and throw those in. Here's where you get to decide which one. Some of it's going to get covered up. Which one do you least want to be covered up? I think I like this little guy the best. So I'm going to put that over there. Now when you use watercolor, your paper is going to get lumpy bumpy, which is why it's getting more adhesive than usual. And also, sometimes I hit it with the heat tool. It kind of helps flatten it out. Okay, I'm using some Calypso Coral ribbon. I like to just put a glob of adhesive down and kind of play around with the ribbon a little bit. Okay. I'm going to put my little thank you right there. There, my little fake watercolor. I think it's really pretty. I think the colors are lovely. I love the stamp set. This one turned out really lovely. So kind of play around with it and see how you like to just touch your brush and add water, add some ink, see what you like. Sometimes you can add too much water. I think I did that on this one down here, so I covered that one. Really fun. I hope that you'll play along with it. I hope that you like the new catalog that comes out in just a few days. Check it out. It'll be posted on my blog June 4th. If you'd like a catalog, let me know. And I've already sent them out to previous customers, so you should be getting those. You probably already got them. Let me know if you didn't, if you're a previous customer of mine. And thank you so much for watching. Bye.